Welcome to another edition of the Dental Today podcast. Thank you for stopping by. This is brought to you by LabMediaTV. My name is Hezekiah Morales, and here we go. Remember to follow us on social media at LabMediaTV.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of the Dental Today podcast. We are excited to have Mr. Michael Smith on the show. You've seen him in the LMT magazine. You've seen him in the Densply Sirona booth out in Chicago and West Palm Beach and Tennessee. And you were in Vegas as well, correct?
I was in Vegas a few years ago, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
at the Sarah World. I think it was Sirona, Densply Sirona World at that point. I mean, it's kind of hard to keep up with how many times they've changed the name of that event.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we have him here today. Michael, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it. Looking forward to it.
We appreciate you coming on the show, and we tried to set this up a little sooner. But we've all been playing phone tag with everybody in the industry because we're at the last 2 months of the year, and it gets a little crazy. But it was definitely a pleasure meeting you, Michael. We met out in West Palm Beach at Zon Expo out in October. It was a pleasure meeting you. You were there working with the CAM, the milling side of Sirona, and it was a pleasure meeting you. I'd like to get into a little bit of your background. Obviously, here at the Dental Today podcast, we like to know the history behind the people that we follow, the people that we look up to, those that are instructing us and sharing all this information. And I see here your father was a dentist, so you were around the dental industry ever since you were a baby. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so, my dad was he was a dentist in the Air Force, and I was 6 months old. And at 6 months old, he moved. He was actually stationed at Offutt Air Force Base in, near Omaha, Nebraska. And he wanted to move back home. He's originally from East Tennessee, him and my mom. And so moved back, and he started his private practice in a little town north of Chattanooga. It's called Dayton, Tennessee. Mm-hmm. And pretty much been here ever since. I grew up in a dentist office. Every vacation I ever took was, for the most part, wrapped around continuing education for him. And, if there was a Disney World or Six Flags or something, if there was any type of dental event, that was our vacations. But yeah, I mean, he's still in practice. He's 69 now, still in practice. And I guess I told him one day, I said, hey, you probably need to think about retiring. And he says, well, you don't spend your entire life getting good at something and then quit when you're good. So he's pretty passionate about dentistry. So who knows how long he'll keep on turning them.
That is exciting. And so, obviously, being in a dental family, because your father was a dentist, I'm sure you got your hands on a few things. But I see here that you recorded here that at 11 you trimmed your first model. How did that come about?
So we were in his old office was located in a strip mall, and whether I was riding a bus to the office or having other parents drop me off after school, I mean, my mom worked in the office as a receptionist, and so every single day, me and my sister have to go to the office and wait for mom and dad to get done working. So while I was there, I mean, I started off when I was a little bit younger, just kind of helping my mom out with at the time you had to lick stamps. You didn't have self-adhesive stamps, so I was the kid over in the corner once a month having to lick those stinking stamps on every daggone statement and getting a pasty mouth. So I just kind of eventually graduated up to cleaning out impression trays because I thought it was cool when you're when you're 6, 7, 8 years old, you kind of think it's cool to put on a pair of latex gloves and feel like you're somebody. So I did that, and I started showing a little bit of interest because my dad, to be honest with you, he kind of jumped around different laboratories, and he just got to the point that he just didn't like what he was getting. So he started doing his own lab work. And that means doing his own lab work means he comes down on the weekends and his days off, and he works in the lab at the office to create crowns, partials, dentures, whatever he needed to create. And I just hang out with my dad. So come down and just finally one day he's just like, hey, let me show you how to trim a model. And then so I think I was 11 years old when that happened, trim my first model.
Wow. Trimmed your first model at 11, and then fast forward 1988 is pretty much when you seriously started working in the lab. Is that correct?
Well, seriously is probably a relative term. Seriously would be, I kind of showed interest, and I started kind of doing a couple other things, helping my dad kind of along the way. Nothing major. I wasn't casting copings or processing dentures or anything else, but I was doing remedial things, stuff like maybe pouring a model or polishing a rim of a denture from a reline, or just all sorts of little things, stuff that I couldn't screw up too bad, so to speak, that wasn't pretty much fixable pretty quick. But when I was in high school, I started working in the lab a little bit more. I mean, I did play sports as well. Those of you that know me know that I'm a pretty big guy. So I ended up, kind of falling into some football and doing that. I played baseball most of my life as well, and just decided to put forth an effort and be productive and kind of get a job and make a little bit of side cash. So when I started driving, I'd have a little bit of running around money, so to speak.
Right. And
that's kind of where I was first exposed to it.
That's very, very interesting. Now, my question, the next question I'm gonna ask you is more philosophical rather than having anything to do with dental, or more into the philosophy of the transference of knowledge and immersion and all that. So I have an 8-month-old, and for the past 10 years, I've made a point to pray for my son even before I was married. Right, I pray for my children actually before I even knew my wife. And now that I have an 8-month-old, it's real, the impact that as parents we have on our children. So you were into sports, and being in sports, obviously the camaraderie that comes along with all the guys on the team and all this. Obviously, these guys were talking to you about what they were doing and all this, but what really brought you back to working with your father, and what really brought you back to develop yourself in this profession when there were probably 10, 20, 30 other options that you were hearing around you?
So there was a point in my younger years that I really didn't understand. I didn't understand dentistry. Now, when I say that, I'm talking like I'm real young. So one vivid memory that I have, and it's kind of aside from dentistry, so to speak, but one memory that I have that I kind of use all the time is about once a month we would load up in an old K5 Blazer that my dad owned, and we would drive to Chattanooga and go to me and my dad would get our hair cut, and we'd go to my dad's childhood barber. It's really like the old school glass bottle Coke machine. It's got the little, I can't even think of what the little thing outside a barbershop is, little white and red spinny thing, whatever it's called. It was old school, and we're driving down the road, and I can remember exactly where it was. We're driving down the road halfway between Dayton and Chattanooga, and I told my dad, I said, "Hey, Dad," I said, "how much money do you have?" And he kind of looked at me funny, like, what type of question's that? And I told him, I said, well, my friends have been talking, and that you're a doctor and / dentist or whatever, and so you're a doctor, so you got a lot of money, so that means we're rich, right? And he just kind of chuckled, and he pulled over to the side of the road and put it in park, and he looked at me and he says, "Do you think I do what I do for money?" And as a probably 5-6-year-old at the time, I said, "Yeah," because I don't know any better.
Right.
And he says, "No," he says, "I do what I do because I get to help people. I help people in a way that they can't help themselves." And that statement that ingrained into me, and it's held true to this point. And I feel we all have a unique ability, a God-given ability, a gift to help our fellow human in some shape, form, or fashion. My dad's is teeth. Mine, I feel, is teeth. And, my kids have their own abilities. You have your own ability. Your son will grow up with his own ability. And it's just discovering that gift that we have. It's one of my lectures, I've got a statement that kind of rings true as well. It says, if you want to discover your gift is what you, let me try to quote it exactly, but your gift is what you do best with the least amount of effort. Meaning you really enjoy what you do. And like for me in dentistry, I absolutely love coming to work. I love talking about teeth, talking about different patients. I love talking about issues and trying to come up with solutions and working together with different doctors or different laboratories to rectify a situation. And it's rang true in my entire life. Like, that's just what I thrive off of. And it could be maybe a little bit of an obsession to a little bit of an extent, but we'll talk a little bit more about that. I won't kind of dive too deep into it about how I kind of balance everything, but
we are going to get it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then but just kind of going back and what the team aspect of what we do is key. I think sports are great in that. I did something a little bit different with my children. We kind of started off with doing some sports at a really, really young age, and then I quickly got to looking kind of around with other people that live at the ball field and kind of their family dynamic, and it just seemed like there was a big disconnect. So our kids didn't play sports until they got into middle school. And, that's our, me and my wife, we have a rule. The rule is you play one sport, you dedicate yourself to that one sport, regardless of what you want to do, whether it's basketball, soccer, football, baseball, whatever, but, you need to pick something, and then you need to put all your effort toward that one thing. Me and my wife were both good at sports, but we're not great, so to speak. So we just have to work hard at anything that we do to be good at it. So.
Right. But I think it's very powerful how your father decided to answer that question in the manner that he did, although you were 5 years old. And I personally can remember a time I was about 8 years old, 7 or 8 years old, that I was riding with my father. It's very interesting. I was riding with my father. We were in one of his trucks, and I asked him, or I told him something. I told him something along the lines of, my father had just come back from counseling with the family or whatever, and I realized that the impact that the meeting had on these people was astronomical. And to me, I was a young boy, obviously, but I could realize, I could perceive that the change was, or the impact was huge. And I turned around to my father while we were driving, and I told him, Dad, I want to be like you when I grow up. And my father turned around, and he said, Hezekiah, if you grow up to be like me, then I haven't succeeded in being a father, because you have to go further than the things than where I've gotten to, and you've got accomplished much more than what I have. And that changed my perspective about my father, and I perceived that what he told you changed your perspective about a profession in general. Because I do see here that you're not only you don't only own Sierra Dental Arts, you also own Sierra Milling, and you are also a stakeholder in Sierra Imaging. So talk to me a little bit about your journey from going from an 11-year-old boy who's trimming a model to going through school and opening up your own laboratory.
Well, it's I kind of thought I'd be a dentist, to be honest with you.
The natural profession.
I got really big hands. So being a dentist or a proctologist is probably not in the cards for me. I wouldn't be very successful. Maybe
working on Tony Robbins' mouth, but other than that, maybe.
Yeah, there you go. You know what? I kind of, as I worked in the lab through high school, I really wanted to do more than just teeth. I really, I thought it was cool what we were doing, but I wanted to take it to the next level. And I thought to myself, you know what? I'd love to make like prosthetic limbs, like arms, legs. And so I did a little bit of research in that. And what I did was I found out that I need to go into physical therapy. And then get a degree in physical therapy, and then I could kind of specialize and go into prosthetics and kind of merge over into the medical side. And that was kind of the track that I needed to take from talking to a few different people that did it. And I was not I guess I was trying to work on my life more than I was my studies in college. So I mean, I wasn't a partier or anything like that, but I just didn't really care about school that much. And I was getting decent grades, but at that time in the mid-'90s, when you're trying to get into PT school, you pretty much had to have a 4.0 or it was a no-go. And I didn't have a 4.0. I had something like a 3.4, 3.5, something like that after my first year. And then my advisor said, well, pick something else. Because you're out. And I was like, well, okay. So I had some discussions, and kind of my fallback was dental lab. And, you know, I kind of feel that was kind of God directing me into what he felt that was, you know, where I needed to be. And, you know, you got to make the best of it. So I had that discussion, and my dad always asked me, he's like, you know, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? What do you want to do? Like any good father would. And, you know, mom as well. But I think deep down inside, I just wanted to help people. And so my dad taught me a lot about the lab side of the business. And like, he told me, he's like, listen, Michael, if you can create some predictable results each and every time, and it's proprietary and it's good work, it looks natural. He says, you would be a millionaire if it's money that you're worried about. But he said, you can, it's hard to find good dental labs out there. He says they exist, but they're just hard to find. But when you find them, they do charge a premium, which they ought to. And so that kind of rang true with me. And then, so I think it was I'm pretty sure it was my freshman year of college. I decided, you know what, maybe this dental lab thing is something I should pursue. So that summer when I was home, what my dad did is he called around to a few different labs of people he had used in the past, people he respected, and he basically allowed me to go down and spend a few days just kind of sitting in the lab and talking to different people. And so, I'm not going to mention any names, but I visited a lab in Georgia, visited a lab in Alabama, another one in Tennessee, and then I think one in North Carolina. And I just kind of went around, and they were kind of different size labs, different variances of work. Some were boutique, some were, big multi-station laboratories that, probably had 15, 20, 30 employees to try to get my feel of what I wanted to do. And I came out of that summer kind of feeling of like, I'd kind of like a little boutique lab. I'm in control, easy to kind of keep everything in check as far as quality. But the desire to serve and to help more people overtook my ability to stay small. Now, I am no means big at all. We're basically just a 3-man lab at this point in Milling Center, but the availability of technology and my diving into the technology was kind of a staple in that. So, we kind of jump ahead a little bit. I graduate college. I graduated in 98. Ended up getting married January 1 of 99. Now, in doing so, when I got married, I knew what I was going to do. I was going to start a lab. I was going to come back to this small town of Dayton, Tennessee, and raise a family and, just kind of see what God had in store for me. But that was kind of the vision that I had. My wife she's a dental hygienist. She actually does work for my father, but she was still in school. She had a year and a half left of school. So this was in Johnson City, Tennessee, at East Tennessee State University. I got my degree there. That's where she got her degree as well. But so she continued to go through her dental hygiene program. She graduated in 2000. I think it was early of 2001, maybe the end of 2000. I can't remember exactly, but so we pretty much had a couple of years up there, or a year and a half at least. Then we moved back, and then that's kind of when I started. And, hire some people, fire some people, trying to
get it right.
My way through it. But I would say one of the biggest life-changing moments was in 2001 when I come back and I first opened my lab. And when I first opened my lab, what happens was you and I were discussing it here just a little bit earlier about the long hours this profession demands. It's so hands-on. It's so labor-intensive. I was working 14, 16, 18 hours a day. I was basically getting up, going to work, working all day, typically working all night, and then coming home. And my wife came to me not long. It didn't take very long for this to kind of conspire, or transform into this. But trying to gather my thoughts here, but so I can kind of hold it together. But my wife came to me and she said, "You know what?" She's like, "You just do nothing but work. Like, you get up before I get up. You come home after I've already gone to sleep. she's like, we talked about starting a family. If we're going to start a family, like I didn't sign up for this. Like I married you because I wanted a husband, not because I wanted somebody just to throw money at me. And I definitely was not throwing money at her at the time either. I mean, it was hard to build up a laboratory. But I just was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I mean, I've devoted myself. I've told myself I'm going to do this, and when I get into it, it just takes up so much of your time. So then we dove into looking for a way to save time. I needed to find a way to buy time. And so my father and I, we purchased a Cerex system. He purchased like chairside Cerex system, and then we got into there was the laboratory version that was about to come out, and so we actually got one of the very first Sirona at the time. It wasn't Densply Sirona then, but Sirona InLab systems is this little box and had a little laser in it that scanned a dye that you put in a single dye with a laser. This was long before it was even 3D. You were trying to match up lines with lines for your margin. It was pretty archaic, to be honest with you, looking at where we're at today. But that machine did one thing, and what that machine did is it saved my marriage. I say,
wow.
Not just to say that a piece of equipment saved my marriage. That's probably not valid. But what it did is it gave me time. It saved me some time. Now, like I said, it was nothing like it is today. So I've stayed with that system pretty much throughout. Pretty sure serial number, if I recall correctly, is serial number 5 of that machine. It actually doesn't even say InLab on it. It says actually Cerex 3 on it.
Wow.
But there's much discussion that can be had there, and transformed to where we are today. We have cone beam in his office. We have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I guess a total of 6 milling units. We have several 3D printers, and we're for the most part all digital. Last year, we poured a total of 48 impressions, I believe.
Wow.
And we completed over 3,400 cases, which equated to a little bit more than 11,000 units.
Wow.
Last year.
Wow.
And that's 3 of us.
Wow. Wow. So,
and it's the technology is what's pushing this industry. We all know that. I mean, just like when I met you down at the Zon Expo, I mean, everywhere you walked, it was nothing but technology. Technology, this technology, that technology. I mean, I bought more equipment down there, bought another milling unit at that show, and then probably going to buy another printer from that show. So, it's just, it gives me the ability to continuously help more people. And that's just what I want to do. I just want to help people. I mean, the money will be there. It's not about the money. It's just, it's about providing being a good resource for a patient. And I tell doctors all the time, I'm in this for the patient. I'm not in it for you. I'm not in it for me. It's for the patient. And I've got a lot. I tell you what, the doctors that work with me, we have such a good working relationship, because the beautiful thing is they know they're not perfect. They know that I'm not perfect, but every single doctor that I have that I work with now is, I can tell you without a doubt, are patient conscious. It's about the patient, 100% about the patient. And it's taken me a few years to get to that point, but I love the fact that I'm there now, and that's one of the biggest reasons why I absolutely love coming to work every single day.
And it's something that really caught my attention when you were saying, you said this this machine saved my marriage. And then you digress. You said, well, it wasn't really the machine. And I agree with that. I believe that the machine was the vehicle. But I believe what let's say, what caused, or at the very least was a catalyst to a change, was reevaluating your processes and bringing tools that were going to improve your processes or optimize your processes. And what would you tell lab technicians or even dentists that are considering getting into technology, but are a little bit, let's call it, intimidated because it's probably their first time getting into a machine, or probably they feel that they don't have the technological background. Maybe they're not that tech savvy. What would you, as a consultant and as a beta tester, and with all these things that you're constantly doing, what would you tell these dental professionals?
Well, just evaluate your problem areas. See where you can improve, where you need to improve, and if there's technology that exists that's supposed to do that, then do it. It's, we look at numbers and we try to base everything off of money. Now there's things that need to be considered as far as pricing, making sure you get a good deal, this, that, and everything else. Any salesman that hears this has ever talked to me knows that I can wheel and deal. But it's just because I'm trying to, the cheaper I can get the equipment, the less of overhead I'm going to have, the less it costs me every single year, and so the better price I can give to my clients and to my patients. But something I would say is you have to be relevant, and the standard of care is constantly changing. It's constantly getting higher and higher and higher. And you just have to make sure that you're treating your patients with the best of the best. Now, there's a lot of systems out there that I don't use that are absolutely wonderful systems. I'm discovering new ones all the time. I'm constantly looking into ways to maybe employ new people, offer new things, new materials. Sometimes I kind of get bit on new materials as, hey, can you test this? Hey, can you try this? Hey, can you do this? And it ends up costing me a ton of money. And, I get all hyped up about it. And, long story short, it just turns out to be a big flop. But there's also been some gems that we found over the years, and that's fine as well. But technology is there to simply solve a problem. The problem that I had at that point in 2001 was the fact that I did not have any time. I needed to buy time. I had no other way to figure out how to buy time except to maybe hire somebody else to do my job. And that's not what I wanted to do. I mean, I didn't know what I was doing. Mm-hmm. I was fresh out of business school. I got a business degree, and I just kind of piddled in the lab through, I thought I worked in the lab, but I just kind of piddled through the lab in my high school years and when I was home on the summers for college. But yeah, I wasn't stacking porcelain, and I was barely even waxing up a crown at the time. Like, it was tough. And so I was still learning myself. So how can I go out here and hire somebody to do all the work for me? That's not going to cut it. I need to be able to do everything and anything, and I want to be the best at it. And if I'm not, then the competitive side of me wants me to be the best at it. But the older I get, the more I lean on people that I trust.